So today I was checking my Twitter and I saw that the creator of this game released a new update along with releasing it for Mac. So if you're a Mac user and you've been watching the video and you want to get the game, now is the time to get it. And he said in honor of that, he added a new feature, which was building arches in courtyard areas. Now before, so I'm going to build one right here. Now before, what happened is when you built a courtyard area, it would only create the grass in the middle if you had a completely closed off outside. So if it looks something like this, it would create a grassy area, and as soon as you built an arch, let me build an arch. As soon as you built an arch, oh geez, that grassy area would get destroyed. Now with a new update, you can build these arches and still preserve the grassy area on the inside. I haven't really explored this too much, so I don't know exactly how it works. Like for example, that arch right there obviously didn't make any grass in the middle, but I've done it before. So let me see. Maybe, yeah. Okay. So I think the way that it makes the grass is if the arch to the courtyard has wall on either side. So one leg of the arch can't be the corner. It has to be on the side of the wall. And the cool thing about this is if you make, I think, an arch on the opposite side as the first arch that you made, it'll draw a path between them, like this. In this, I have not seen before. This is a totally new feature, and I think it looks really, really good. So I'm gonna just make a build, see how I can kind of explore using this tool, and we'll just go from there. So I have always kind of envisioned making a castle. So a castle is essentially the basic thing you can build in Townscaper. Just looking at these different pieces, it seems pretty obvious that they're made to build kind of castle-y structures. And if you look online, pretty much all of the Townscaper compilation videos are of people building castles. Now, I try to kind of avoid building castles. They are what looks best in this game, but I kind of try to build unique stuff like UFOs and mazes and whatnot, just to kind of get away from the normal standard Townscaper brand of building castles everywhere. But in this video, I am going to do my best to build kind of an accurate, realistic, really, really grand looking castle. So to do that, I want to start off on a good foot. I'm going to open up the grid so I can see where I can find a symmetrical area. I really want this castle to just make sense organizationally. I basically have two options. I can do a castle that's like kind of a grid and really focus on the square characteristics of a castle, or I can do something that's a little bit more complicated, like having the center of the castle, if you can see there's kind of a six-sided shape over here, having the center of the castle right there and building it in a radial direction. To make this more interesting, actually, what I can do is I can do both. I can build both the radial style and a more grid style, and I can build them in kind of two warring regions or something. Yeah, that'd be super cool. So I can have each castle on one island. I can make them opposite colors, or at least opposite color schemes, and kind of fictionalize some kind of conflict between them. This kind of reminds me of my Split City video, which I have linked on the right. So definitely check that out, where I built two halves of a city which were for some reason opposed to each other. So they built a wall right down the middle. In this case, I'll probably do like a river or something, because that's a more normal, natural boundary between two kingdoms. Okay, so if I want to have a radial section, I think I'll just build it right where it started, that tower right there. So at this point in the video, I just stopped playing to get onto a Zoom call meeting with this guy who, it turns out, I think was trying to scam me and get me involved in some kind of like pyramid scheme or something. So that was a total waste of time. But now I'm back in the game. So this area right here looks like a pretty good place to build the river. It kind of has no structure at all. It doesn't really look very good. It's just the area kind of between these two grids. So I am just going to build kind of that as my coastline. The kind of interesting shape to it could make a good simulation of like a really jagged coastline in this section. How far away can I have these castles away from each other? So I can go pretty far. I mean, see, I kind of like the idea of this castle not being at the very, very edge, just because it's got this radial shape, so it kind of lends itself to being spread out in every direction. So I think that if I make the map bigger, I'm going to make it bigger from the opposite side. So I'm going to make it bigger over here rather than over there. If that makes sense. And then that's about as good for the extent of this castle. Okay.
So at the top of the map where I was supposed to put the block castle, I realized it didn't really have a really strong grid, which I need to make it. So I decided to move it to the opposite part of the map on the bottom right.
What I can do is I can make two cities, and the cities are supposed to be kind of representative of the culture of that kingdom. And so this culture, because the only way you can represent culture is through the architecture, this culture will have a lot of right angles, a lot of gridded streets, kind of very organized, or not just very organized, but very organized at 90-degree angles. And then this society will be very radial. So it'll be a lot of nodes and links between those nodes, and that will kind of be that structure over there. So that's the river. I decided I wanted to make it really windy just because I've never done that before, and I'm surprised at how good it looks.
I didn't record laying down the first layer of tiles just because it's honestly kind of boring, but basically what I'm trying to do is lay out the grid for the right half of the map. This is the half of the map that I really want to be ordered in 90-degree angles, a lot of grid shapes, a lot of squares, a lot of courtyards, those kind of things, because I really want to demonstrate making paths between arches in the courtyards, which is the new feature that I mentioned earlier. I start out just by making the main street, and then I kind of go down the right side, making one of the main roads extending into the southern area of the town. After that, I define the courtyards of the downtown area, which extends from the castle all the way to the edge of the map. So this is where I realized it wouldn't be so easy to make a town of totally 90-degree angles, just because the grid itself of the map curves really, really significantly, even if on the small scale there appear to be right angles everywhere. And then once I define the mainland, then I build two small islands just to kind of add some interest.
So it was a lot harder than I expected to make a grid, especially when you're using courtyards this large. So I think I'm going to experiment with making my courtyards a lot smaller, maybe cutting them in half, if that's even possible. And then it'll be easier to see a more right-angled grid situation. And then the other side of the city, that side of the city can have more courtyards and more greenery. That's a lot better. I just think you can see, looks kind of more like a rib cage or something. You can just see so much more easily the fact that it's grid. I'm actually really loving the different forms I'm making in these streets. I'm really not used to working in such a defined typology for these city streets. I usually just kind of go wherever I want, but I make some really interesting landscapes here.
This right here is the last shot that I made before my computer ran out of battery. And then when I turned it on, Townscaper wouldn't open, it kind of caused a bunch of problems. I had dinner, and then finally I fixed it. So now we're back.
Okay. Now I think I probably want the castle to be up here, just because, I think I wanted it to be this earlier. Yeah, I can make a bunch of courtyards going along here, and have the garden paths going through. So if that's going to be the border of the castle, if it's going to be kind of a longer thing, then what can I do with this area? I should probably do some sort of like courtyard, King's Court. Actually, that's not what King's Court is, but you know, maybe I can do it up here. Maybe this can be the center line of the castle. Oh no, but then I still have this problem. No, this can be a big lawn. Just a big park out in the middle of everything. So I think what I can have is kind of a main castle building up here that's a little bit, you know, not super symmetrical, and that's okay, but it'll have a series of courtyards coming down this direction, and that will look really good. And then if I want to, so if this is going to be the border of the kind of courtyard area, it's got to connect with the rest of the city. I got to have some link between this side of the city and this side of the city where you don't have to go across the bridge. So I'm going to delete this section of the castle, and so there can be a road kind of going along the river right there. And then historically, if there's a road going along the river there would definitely be an opening in this building, just to let people through. So this section I really filled out as urban all the way to the end. I mean, apart from obviously the park area in the middle here, it's pretty densely populated. So I think what I want to have is for this part of the city to be kind of the more better, centrally run, organized, more modern part of the city that's more developed. And so these buildings will be, I'm gonna make them more colorful, just so they're not this kind of old-looking stone color. And then the other side of the building, other side of the city, that side can be kind of more muted, just because it's older. Maybe they care more about the history. Paint is worn off, that kind of thing. Plus, I can turn these single-story courtyards into maybe 2 or 3 story commercial buildings, and that could also look nice. Where should I think I should start with the castle though. So the castle, I can make something bold. I can make it blue. And we can start with this area right here. And this can be kind of the main, maybe not the main courtyard, but the top courtyard. And actually, I might keep this level because I know that a lot of castles have a stone bottom level and maybe a more interesting painted top. Lightweight top. I think this is a security thing, like French Revolution type peasants revolting, and so they made the lower levels really, really strong stone and kind of like a fort, and then the upper levels would kind of be a little bit more frivolous. And then, should I do variation or should it all be the same shade of blue? Let's go with the same shade of blue, and if that doesn't look good, then we can change it later. And then this section, I want it to be the tallest part of the whole area. And then this part of the castle, maybe this can be a different color. I think they should be the same. If my whole city is going to be different colors, it maybe won't be clear the castle is one thing if I make it even just slightly different colors, just because people will think that it kind of blends in with the variation of the surrounding area. So if I want to make it clear that this is one full location that covers this area but also down here as well, then I should make it one strong, consistent color. Let's hope it makes a path. Okay, it did not make a path. Shoot! That was the whole point of doing this, to demonstrate the fact that it would make a path. Okay, now let's, maybe if we do this, it'll build a path, because it's closer. Okay, so it builds a path like this, but not when it's like this. Maybe it's just a distance thing. So if I move this wall, or even I could just make it a double thickness arch, double width. Is that? That's the one. Interesting. So these two are the same size, but they still won't connect with that arch. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because there's a 2-color section. What's the issue? Because these are definitely lined up. Or are they? No, they're not. Let's see, if I eliminated this arch, would it build a walkway there? Maybe it has to be a single height, can't be a double height. Okay, so it has to be a single height arch. I think that's the key. I love how it's the same road going all the way through. And then we'll have it go one more time up to the edge of this area. Awesome, so that's kind of like the driveway into the main castle area. I think that looks really good. Now let's see if I can do another one over here. I think that it makes sense that this wall would go blue all the way down anyway, just because it's within this courtyard, so there's no reason for them to be worried about, you know, intruders. Okay, is that it for that castle? Is that really all I want, or do I want to be more ambitious? Maybe I can do kind of just like, oh, interesting. Makes the path across and then has the wall going between those two buildings, but it has a little arch. Has a little arch on that wall, so that people can walk right through. What if I do building here? Yes. Right here. You know, I like that a lot. I like how it has these little arches. It just makes it more of a process to go through. You know, I should make this wall one step in, and then I can have shops on the outside. So now that I did that, it creates kind of an interesting feature here. It creates this garden that goes all the way back and kind of ends right there. So I think what I could do is build some kind of cool tower or something, like a white tower. Maybe this is some kind of a memorial to an old ruler or child or something. Just a little quiet area away from the main castle. Okay, let's fill this in. And along the side of the castle, we can build little shops. I think these should be one story, because that way they can kind of simulate a lot of variety. I'm kind of imagining that these shops are just really kind of cheap, touristy places that aren't really selling that high quality stuff. They were probably constructed after the wall was made, and the people who built the wall, or the castle administrators, decided that they wanted to leave space between the tops of the shops and the castle top, so that they could look out over the other city in case there was some kind of invasion. But then now that the cities are a little bit more linked, their economies are a bit more connected, now you don't really need to have, the wall isn't so much of a priority, so you can have these little shops along it without worrying too much about the security risk. So that's that area. Bunch of little shops. And then this building right here, what can that be? It's right next to the castle, so maybe this is kind of like a town hall. So even though it's a dictatorship, maybe there's some kind of democratic body, like a little parliament or something. Or no, it's not a dictatorship. It's just a monarchy, I guess, because there's a big castle. So this building can be kind of a similar color, but not the same color, just so it blends a little bit in with the castle, but it still kind of has its own identity. And let's go like this, maybe. Does that look too much like a church? Perfect. And then that can have like a sky walkway into the castle, just so there's some access. Oh shoot, actually I can make the roof higher. So that way people can get from the castle to this kind of town hall building if the king wants to participate or the king wants to deliver some important message. And then in the same vein, maybe this can be some kind of administrative building. And then there can also be a walkway between the castle and that building as well. Okay, and then probably the highest value real estate in this whole city is going to be maybe this plot here, just because it's right at the intersection of this bridge area as well as being on the road. That's the only link between the two halves of this side of the city. What should I call the city? Let's just call it Block City, just because it's full of a bunch of blocks like this. So Block City has a main road right here, and so the nicest buildings are along that road. And then maybe to kind of symbolize that, I can make the bottom of the buildings white, just like a pure white color, so they still kind of match the aesthetic of the solid bottom, colorful top, but the white color kind of makes it a little bit fancier. It's expensive, but it can't be too high, just from a protection issue. You know, they got to have a view from these towers. Maybe the taller buildings I can have in this section of the city. Okay, so now, yeah, the memorial has a little garden in the back. That's nice. Perfect. And then this, let's kind of go back into this more central area. Maybe this building here can be some kind of central marketplace. So I'll eliminate the bottom layer, bottom level, and just add a big flat roof over it. Then we can get some more variation. So the kind of main chunky buildings, these big corporate buildings, these big markets, these big administrative buildings, they're all one color just because they all have one major function. And then as you get into the main city area, then you get more specialized buildings. So I can delete some of these walls and build commercial buildings basically. This right here, maybe this can be a church just because it's right in the center of things. Yeah. So maybe it's got like a big white, maybe I shouldn't make it a white steeple because that's already white over there. Maybe it's got a big stone steeple and then around it it's got a more colorful base. Maybe it should be the opposite with the solid bottom and then the really colorful peak or the really colorful tower. No, I think I should keep the stone part of the tower, and then I can make a solid base with a single strip of color going around. That's kind of weird looking, to be honest. Oops. Can I replace that with... Okay, that looks better. Looks more unified. I mean, it's still a weird look, but I think this whole city is kind of eclectic, so that's okay. Should this be a kind of a central square area? It's a little bit far from kind of the main street. I mean, technically this still is the main street, but yeah, so that can be a main square, because maybe the city in another life and an older time was kind of had two centers, one over here, and if they weren't connected, then the downtown of this city definitely would be this area because it's right by the river. So anyone coming to the river would have to go down this street or down one of these streets or down over here to get there, and they would have to go through the square. And then this part of the city maybe was some other little like village or something. And then this castle, whoever eventually built the castle, they unified the city and made it one kind of big kingdom area, which is why you have a square right here, a castle right here, and maybe another square. Another central square down there. Okay, so in the central square, Should I have a tower in the center of the central square? I had this tower here earlier, which I actually really, really liked, but I could probably turn this into one big building with a tower on it and then have a different tower here. So the tower in the middle of the central square, maybe that can be a kind of a reminder of the power of the king. So let's build a thing like this, just to kind of symbolize the same, color match. So there's like some kind of connection there. And then I can build a similar tower in the center of the next city, or in the next downtown area. And then this building here, maybe this is kind of like a port building or something, or some kind of loading area. So I can build it like this. That could be kind of cool. And it's more of a functional building, so I might leave it the color that it is. Just kind of unpainted, bland, boring, like that. But maybe the front can be something interesting, because it's facing the central square. They at least painted the front a nice color. Perfect. And in this building here, I'm going to split up into more of these smaller houses. And maybe each of them are going to go back a little bit further. Now, if it really was a square, I think that these people would want to maximize their frontage. So they'd probably want to have a taller front to their buildings. Maybe you would even go further than that. They would actually make it taller. I said earlier that I might make skyscrapers and stuff in this part of the city, but I'm kind of not really feeling in the mood to do that. Just because the spires are so nice, the church is so nice, that's pretty nice. I don't really feel like I have to ruin it with anything else. This third spire, I really actually don't need that, because I already have these two right next to each other, so it kind of looks weird if I have multiple spires super close. We can turn that maybe into an arch. So let's make this building another kind of headquarters-y building. Okay, so there's like a little driveway here. You come under the building, park your carriage or whatever, and then you go in. That sounds reasonable. And then on the edge, I can just build some kind of bland white area. Along here we can get more ambitious. Maybe this is a newer part of the city. Maybe these are taller buildings. But I feel like it doesn't have enough of these small scale buildings to be realistic. It's all kind of these big, chunky, mega block type of things. So I might make some of these thinner so that there are multiple of them. And then at the edge of this part of the city, I've got kind of an interesting area where there are these two islands, or maybe three islands, that are connected by a single street to the mainland, but they themselves are off to the side. So I think that because maybe these are man-made islands or something, that they shouldn't really be able to support a ton of weight. So I could just kind of have some low-lying, maybe no more than 2-story buildings on them. Or maybe it's one of these kind of car-free zone areas where you've got a row of buildings and a nice courtyard behind them, and that is kind of the main way of getting around this part of the city, just by walking across the courtyards, and then there's some kind of other structure where you can keep your vehicles or whatever. But the point is that this part of the city isn't dominated by the streets. Oh, I can just do an arch. I keep forgetting that with the new update, I can just make arch entryways. What kind of color should this arch be? Let's make it this kind of gross green. Maybe I can just make this one big kind of mega island with an arch connecting these two areas. Great. I love that. Now let's do the same thing. Let's just do the same thing over here. Works once, why not do it twice? Should there be 2 entrances or just 1? I think 1 is enough, really. And then maybe there can be kind of a more unique structure to this one, where it comes up to a point and kind of goes out in this direction. Maybe that right there could be kind of like a waterfront restaurant or something with a little dining area attached. So I think that half of that part of the city is done. Now we can do this half. This half's maybe a little bit newer. Maybe this is kind of where the noble people of the city are. So they got larger houses with more courtyards. It's kind of a more official atmosphere, you know? So maybe I could do something similar to here where I have this path going through. Maybe I could do something similar on this part of the map where even though there are lots of different houses in this area, it's kind of like a gated neighborhood type of thing. Maybe not so official as a gated neighborhood, but there's some kind of pact between the different people of these houses that they'll maintain the path going through so that there's a nice park on the interior of this area for all the residents to use.
As I'm going through these courtyards and making the houses along them, you can see that I'm kind of going by a loose color code. So the other part of the city was just anyone can build any house anywhere, any color. This should kind of be in the same colorful scheme as the other part of the city, but I think there should be a little bit more order to it. So each courtyard generally has one color that the shades of the houses are usually kind of based on.
You know, I think that looks so good. I'm so glad they made this update to the game. I think it adds so much value to have these paths going through. It just looks so interesting. Great, so I think that section is pretty much done. I've got these really great courtyards all connected by kind of try to make different typologies of arches, like one with a column, one that's double wide, one that's kind of just a standard single wide but double height, that kind of thing. And then over here, I wonder if I could, I guess, just make more kind of shopping type stuff. And then right at the end of the street, on the water, maybe I can have kind of a public square. Because I meant to have the public square be over here, but there really isn't enough space if I want the river to go the way it's going, which is okay. I can build a kind of a different type of public area along this river here. So that can have another one of these blue towers that I wanted to have from earlier. Make it a little bit taller, and maybe we'll make a little something like that, just to make it unique, just to make it a little bit different from the one over here. And maybe to prevent these blue towers from getting confused with anything else, I'm just going to change the color of the other major blue buildings so that they don't stand out so much. Great. Okay, so that section is done. And that is this half of the city. So I think I'm ready for... Am I ready for the grand tour? Yeah, I think I'm ready for the grand tour. Okay, so here's kind of the scenario that I'm imagining for this part of the city. There's originally two kind of villages or something, very small towns, here and here. They each have a central town square, they each have their own houses, their own shops, everything, they're kind of self-contained. But that's a long time ago, that's like medieval ages. Until this castle, or not this castle, but whoever eventually built this castle, unifies these two parts of the city, and presumably also other cities in this area, because you can't really build a huge castle with money coming from basically like 10 blocks. So I'm kind of imagining this whole kingdom extends out into the distance. But anyway, so this castle links these two parts of the city and makes it into like a capital city or something. And so now it's really one large, connected, big institution type of thing. And then there's a whole set of political problems maybe with this group of people, this part of the city. But that is or not this part of the city, but this other country. But that's kind of the problem for a different time. Let's go into the details of the specific streets here. So we start out in this side of the city with these two islands. These two islands, maybe they're newer, kind of man-made things, but they're not really made of like New York City type land reclaiming, which is strong enough to sustain big skyscrapers. Maybe this is more like Mexico City, where it's really only strong enough to support a couple of, low buildings, like maybe they're floating or something. But then on these islands, you've got like a paradise basically of no roads, just a bunch of gardens, a bunch of really nice, just great spaces to be in. I'm just noticing now that it looks like the game will automatically create a path between these gardens for you. So there's always a way to get from any point in the garden to any other point. Or maybe that is just me making that up, because you can't get from there or from there. So, that was total BS. I just made that up. But a lot of the places are accessible. You can access this one, this one, this one. You can kind of walk through here, this courtyard, go through the archway right there, through this kind of big arch, obviously, and then only to this other side. But still, that's kind of a lot of access, especially when you consider that maybe these are supposed to be backyards. It's really nice that they are all open to each other, so people can walk through and visit their neighbors and stuff like that. And then there's kind of a same deal for this area over here. And then there's like a restaurant or something at the end. Maybe I'll build street here, just because it's hard to go from here into the park area, across here into the restaurant. It makes more sense just to have access directly from the street. So that restaurant has an entrance here and then outdoor seating here, and you can kind of see the castle from the water, which is probably a pretty nice view at night. Imagining that kind of lit up. So that is that section here. That is that section here. Am I forgetting anything? No. And then as you get closer to the kind of the central area, you've got this set of really tall buildings. The reason that these are tall and these aren't, even though this is the center of town, I'm imagining is some kind of zoning thing where nothing around this square could be taller than this tower, or even approaching it. And so these buildings are kind of mandated to be relatively short, which I think also gives the main square here kind of a nice historical feel. And then there's this tower, some kind of commercial building. It's got like a entryway underneath in case you've got a car or carriage or a horse or something. You can get out of the rain while you get out and enter your office or hotel room or whatever you want to kind of imagine this building to be. And then this is maybe a place where people can dock their boats. So underneath, you can see there's no land there. It's just basically a roof over the river. So I'm kind of imagining boats being tucked under, like canoes and kayaks and stuff. Small boats, fishing boats. And then over here, you've got just some more nice small buildings that are accessible through this courtyard here. And then some more blocks. And you've got like a central marketplace here. I don't really love the way this looks. Just it seems so chintzy compared to everything else. But I'm kind of imagining that when the street is busy, vendors will set up shop under these roof areas, and it'll be a really nice place to be. Then, as you kind of go back, there's two administrative-ish buildings. This one's like a town hall or something for the local city administration, and then this is a larger building. Maybe it's some kind of federal building for the administration of the whole kind of kingdom area. Both of them are connected by these white sky bridges to the main castle, which is this big thing in blue, just so the king or whoever's in charge has direct contact with both of these governments. Then the castle, pretty sweet digs. Because I wanted this whole city to be a very square theme, as square as you can get in this game, I wanted the central feature of the castle to also be a square. So you can see that's what it is, with these 4 towers on all 4 corners. Then, probably the most distinctive feature of this castle is the courtyards. You come out here, and as you kind of go between these courtyards, there's this really nice path here. I really wanted to highlight this because this is a new feature of this game as of only like 24 hours. So I think this is really great. Basically what it does, or what it means, is that you can build arches between courtyards and streets, and it won't totally destroy the courtyard inside, which I think makes these courtyards a lot more realistic, because previously what I was doing was creating, 3x3 buildings around any gate that I had, and then building a wall through the middle of the building and having 2 arches on the side, so that at an angle like this, it would look like the arch was going all the way through. But I don't have to do that anymore. I can just build the arch how they were meant to be built. Arches how they were meant to be built. And then within the courtyards, I've got these side buildings. I don't really know what the point of these might be. Just kind of an interesting decoration, not to kind of break up the monotony of this dark blue color. Then you can kind of go down this path into this square area. I'm kind of imagining maybe this is like a more public part of the castle. So maybe when the king has to give speeches and stuff, I should build a place where the king can give speech. So when the king wants to address the people, they'll open up the gates. Where are the gates to this thing? Okay, yeah, so when the king wants to make an address, he will open up this gate right here, and then people will fill this area, and then he can address them from the balcony here. And then at the end of this yard, you've got this nice memorial. Maybe this is to an old king who's since passed. Maybe this is the king who unified the whole area, or the queen. I should probably be more progressive. Actually, not even that progressive, because it's totally arbitrary whether there's a king or a queen. It's a totally hereditary thing. So let's just say the queen is the person who unified the whole city, and this is kind of a little memorial to her, with like a memorial garden or something. And then the final part is this part of the city. To get between them, you just go down this main central road. You pass by these 2 commercial buildings, heavy-duty, large-scale commercial areas, right by the bridge, basically, to the other part of... I say the other part of the city. Really, it's a different city in a different country, but together they make one kind of urban unit. Kind of like... kind of imagining Ciudad Juarez in Mexico is across from, I think, San Diego. And so they're very different on both sides, but together they kind of make one unified urban landscape. And then, so you go down this road, passing those 2 commercial buildings that probably deal in trade with the opposite city. You end up in this area, which is a little more organized. You can see it's kind of vaguely culturally different from this other area. It's more color-coded. So each of these courtyards in this area has a general color theme. I mean, it's not totally strict, but you can see that it's not just totally random the way these are random. In these buildings, maybe they're trying to mimic the king now with the whole courtyard thing. So they have an agreement, all the people who live around this development, to maintain their courtyard, to maintain their gate and stuff. so that they can all collectively enjoy the fact that they have access to a large walking area. I don't have any specific buildings in here that have a specific function other than this building, which is the main gate. So you can see the main gate has a path going through here, leading to the arches, which then goes left and right to either side. And then this building here, I don't really know exactly what this would be. Maybe it's kind of like a bank or something that relates to trade a little bit, because it's right by the water. It's got this staircase down to the water in case boats or something has to be loaded from it. So yeah, let's call it a bank. And that's just how they transport the money and whatever. Very secure, big institution for this half of the city. Maybe makes more sense that it's on this half of the city just because these houses are nicer, so I'm kind of imagining this is a wealthier part of the city. So maybe that's where they all work, is this bank here. And then here is a tower just to remind the people in this part of the city of the power of the central government. I guess when the Queen united these two villages, she built these two towers on here and here, just to remind them kind of who's boss and whose country they're in. And with that, that's pretty much the final feature of this half of the city. I'll be making the second half in my video tomorrow, so please subscribe and turn on post notifications for that. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching this little episode. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Black Lives Matter, and I will see you tomorrow.